Hello Internet and World of Community, I'm Jackie Fox, and I've been wondering what kind of a video I could do that I haven't seen anyone else do. And I've also heard a lot of good things from other players about the story in Intermission 2, and personally I think it's probably some of the best and deepest storytelling that has been done in one self-contained segment in like the whole run of Word Divisions. Honestly, like that's why I had to parody some elements of it with my Wasted Words music video, because man, like especially for Sodley's character, and Sodley, no matter how much you've played of the game, this probably won't come as a spoiler that Sodley, the head of the religion who calls himself an immortal god, is secretly pulling the strings behind literally everything and knows way more than he lets on. And well, there's only a couple things that you actually know about him throughout the first couple chapters, and if you want to skip those and go straight into this is technically a prequel. It won't hurt you to not have that knowledge, but if you want to skip it, I'll put a timestamp on screen for you. I'll just explain it right now. So what we know about Sodley is that part of his motivation, part of his heel turn apparently, came when his love of his life, Exia, was irreparably injured. And somehow he is managing to keep her in stasis. Now, how long ago this happened, or when, or how, or any of that, not explained in the first two chapters of the story. But one of the things that we do know is that through magic, he is creating homunculuses based on her that are similar to her. So a lot of the characters that we meet throughout the game, Luartha being one of them, but also Whisper and the other ladies in white, those are all homunculi that are based on Exia in some way, I believe. There is one more point that kind of spoils at least like the beginning of chapter 2, or a lot of arcs in chapter 2, and it's also not super relevant early in the story, and I underestimated how much story there is. So I'm going to try to speed this up where possible. I'm going to skip pauses, I'm going to fast forward through like action scenes, and I think especially in the very beginning here, I'm probably going to skip whole portions and just summarize it for you. So let's get started with that, and then I'll break in and interrupt and tell you kind of what happened in the spaces that I cut out. Okay, let's do this.
This is the work of the Realm Scourge.
I'm afraid it is.
Do not worry. I shall stop this foul monstrosity, and I will find a way to spirit us back to our original world. Whatever that may take. What is it, Amnelis?
It's only fragmentary, but I had a premonition of a new future.
A new future?
Yes, it is not the one you and I know. It is a world where the Realm Scourge has survived and transformed. Where not just Ardra, but Palladia, our home, had also been overwhelmed and on the brink of total annihilation.
What could have changed the future?
I do not know. Perhaps it was mere chance, or perhaps it was inevitable. Even that, I am not sure of.
I have the armor you built for me. Did you not create it as a contingency in order to destroy that threat, if ever the need arose?
That I did, but...
Then there is naught to be afraid of. I will prove to you that the premonition you had was no prophecy, but merely a bad dream.
You need not face the Realm Scourge alone. While the premonition I had did indeed show despair, it also revealed hope.
In what way?
I was also able to glimpse the existence of a bearer of light. With that individual's help, a miracle might just happen.
Where is this light bearer?
That I don't know. All I do know is that we will surely cross paths with them eventually.
Ardra might be destroyed if we stand around waiting for that to happen. I must go and face the monstrosity for the sake of our future.
Gilgamesh.
Okay, first of all, editing the pauses out of votive dialogue is a lot more labor intensive than I thought it would be, but second of all, I think we can safely fast forward through at least some portions of Sodley's first scene. But before we do that, I want to recap on some of the things that were explained in this scene and some of the things that might have gone over your head as a votive player even, because it was only actually revealed how these two characters got here before this moment, that they came from Palladia and that they both traveled backwards in time and through a dimensional rift, and apparently somehow brought an existential terror called the Realm Scourge with them, which is new information, but those previous things, including the fact that Amnilis built this new version of Gilgamesh's armor that was based on his original armor as one of the Veritas, being the Veritas of Frost, I want to say? That feels right. Oh yeah, because he's an ice unit. He was the Veritas of Frost. Right, anyways. And she was the Lightning Sage, which is why she's a water unit. Actually, I think that oracles have a really high correlation with water units anyways. I mean, we've got Ramada and more. So, like, flavor-wise, it makes sense, but she's definitely a lightning unit. Like, she should have been both elements, really. But anyways, that's just me bitching about expanded Final Fantasy lore.
My homeland, Tessera, has finally faded from view. I wonder how Exia fares. When I told her my determination to set forth alone on this missionary journey, she left, disappearing into the rain. Ah, yes. It was also in the rain of the night from whence Exia suddenly appeared before me, nigh on 2 years ago. Is something the matter?
Do you need to ask? Look for yourself. The sea grows wilder by the minute.
The parts of Sodley's story that I want to skip over are partially kind of the filler towards the beginning, which is just that the storytelling for this happens relatively slowly and it evolves over several fight scenes because everything is a fight. This is a fight. How would you interact with the story as a person who can only interact through PvE experiences with the story other than through fights? So he gets into fights on the boat. Oh yeah, another thing you might be missing out on if you haven't played the story is that during certain parts of this, a lot of the more infamous voice actors from the original story reoccur. This one in particular being Curry, so I'm going to play out some of his dialogue so that you hear that. It's also good dialogue.
The youth, upon receiving his long-awaited missionary orders, burned with such keenness that he stood on the bow of our ship, eyes fixed on the horizon. The ship's crew tried to stop him, but he paid no heed, telling us that he wanted to be the first to set eye upon the land of Ardra. As fate would have it, the ship encountered a tempest. The poor youth was swept away by the fierce waves and was never seen again. What do ye think? Quite the tragic tale, eh?
The youth you speak of is... Surely, you cannot intend to throw me into the sea and return to Tessera.
Well, such accidents are pretty common on the high seas.
But, yeah, fights on the boat.
Let's see just how much faith you have in your own abilities!
There's some truth in what the crew speaks. If we press on to Ardra in this manner, many a life may be lost. Violent waters lie await between the lands of Tessera and Ardra. That is the very reason why people say that it is nigh impossible to reach Ardra safely. However, if we were to turn back, perhaps the Supreme Pontiff wishes for me to do just that. There are many in the priesthood who see my rising in rank as loathsome. I imagine they fear that I shall one day surpass them. Little did they realize, I was merely following Exia's counsel in my works. Dispatching me on a missionary journey was perhaps the best way of removing me. All the more so to make the destination of my mission the land of Ardra. Many a missionary has been dispatched there, but it appears none have survived the journey across this wild sea. The priesthood would only need a little push to believe I could be the one to sow the seeds of faith in Ardra. It was Nelsis, after all, who competed with me the most to become a prelate. Proposing the scenario to the Supreme Pontiff would not be strange for such a man.
You suspected as much, and yet you still set off without me?
That voice, it couldn't be. Exia?
You look surprised.
I feared you had lost all affection for me and had absconded somewhere.
Do you think I would ever do such a thing?
Oh, Exia.
Enough of that now! Regardless of the circumstances, stowing away is a serious crime. Even a humble priest should know that much.
But, yeah, fights on the boat. Yeah, fights on the boat.
Shiver me timbers! Ha! You do well for a priest in a maiden fair. There's never a dull day on the high seas.
We merely fight out of sheer desperation. We need this ship intact, that we may complete the crossing to Ardra.
I'm sorry, lad, but we can no longer comply with your request.
Why must you deny us? Exia and I shall do what we can to assist you. We shall cause no bother unto any of you.
It is out of my hands, lad.
You mean your crew refuses to proceed?
They might seem a bunch of rapscallions or scurvy fools to ye. And that they may be, but so long as they're on my ship, those swabs be my family. Returning them home safe and sound is my highest priority.
Then, you intend to throw us overboard?
I am not as heartless to make shark bait out of ye.
Then,
We've got a longboat for you to use.
you cannot be serious! Casting us adrift in a tiny boat in such raging waters?
It shall suffice.
What do you mean, Exia? It is practically suicide.
I had a premonition.
You saw our future?
I did.
But how does that help?
It was only fleeting, but it was clear. An image of you, standing proudly in a grand cathedral.
You believe that cathedral to be of my creation?
Does it beggar belief?
No, it does not. I have made it this far because of you, Exia. So, I believe, with not a shadow of a doubt.
Just as a factual correction to Exia's vision, technically speaking, it does beggar belief because he never actually built a cathedral. He told villagers to build him a cathedral. He told followers and worshippers to build him a cathedral. But to my recollection, he never committed the labor of building a cathedral, much less doing it alone. Cathedrals were built in his honor. It's a semantic argument. I'm just saying, he didn't actually break a sweat in building a cathedral at any point in the story that I recall. And hey, I'll call myself out if he does it, but you know what? This is my bet to you, he's not gonna do it. So before we meet up with our lovebirds in their boat, I just want to say a quick thing about this next scene. Basically, it's revealed that the person that Sodley was competing with earlier in the church essentially told the captain to kill him. So he's, kind of being assassinated right now, except that he, endears himself to the crew by being a faithful and committed. Like, these people are trying to kill him, and he's trying to save them from monsters because he's that kind of person. He is a true believer. He really believes in the crystal faith, in the God that he has not seen, and in the teachings of humility and all of this. And we see the more traditional, through the first 2 chapters, he is a stereotype of this character. You know what I mean? And all of those other people are that same stereotype that are being referenced here, like Nelsus. What I guess I'm saying is that despite what we see later on for Sodali, at this point in his life, he is the best boy priest. He is just a very exceptionally good boy.
There's no sign of any more monsters.
It's because of this tempest. Not even they have it in them to attack us now.
You speak as one without hope. Do you not have faith in my premonition?
Oh, that I could keep faith. Were it not for this fearful storm.
You are not ready to face death? Or is it that you don't wish to do so together? Nelsus knew about me.
Then that means his pretext of sending me alone on this missionary assignment
was with the aim of making me his own. He schemed to use my power of prophecy in order to secure his standing within the church.
No deed is beneath that man.
That was why I stowed away on the ship. I thought, if I were to die, I would rather it was with you.
I am dearly sorry, for I fear I do not have the capability to save you.
Oh, but you do. You are the bearer of light, the one that guided me this far, and the one that shall continue to guide me from here on after. Such a beautiful crystal.
The Supreme Pontiff bestowed it upon me in place of a parting gift. The crystal's light grows brighter. Oh, crystal! Please, show us the way!
One more correction, though. Remember how I just said that Sodali is best boy true believer? Well, actually, that's not the whole story. I kind of lied to you. Actually, the faith in the relationship is really kind of coming from Exia and Exia's faith in Sodali. Him having a follower, someone who believes in him, is, I guess, part of what eventually warps into a godlike mentality, but he really needs someone believing in him to be stable, because we see he has many, many crises of faith, but do them all, Exia is there for him. I guess that's foreshadowing. And then he gets into fights with monsters on the beach.
You two look as though you need a hand.
Who are you?
The name's Quill. Fear not, I'm by your side now. Come on, foul beasts! Come and get it! You two are stronger than you look. It looks like you weren't needing me aid in the end.
Nay, we appreciate your assistance regardless. I am Sodali, and this here is...
Exia, thank you for coming to us.
Haven't seen you in these parts before. You travelers from afar?
Yes, we hail from Tessera.
Tessera? Now that's a surprise. How'd you ever make it across those fierce seas?
It was rough going indeed, but fortune saw fit that we would make it. We seek the nearest village. Perhaps you could show us the way?
Why do you wish to visit me village?
We have come to Ardra to spread the teachings of our Church of the Crystal.
Ah, preachers, huh?
Is something the matter?
I'm afraid the villagers believe in no gods. Moreover, they're highly suspicious of strangers on the whole.
And that doesn't deter us. So please, simply give us directions. This is the very reason we journeyed all the way to these lands.
I'll be taking no responsibility for whatever might happen.
Very well. Heaven will decide our fates.
All right then. Follow me. This be me village.
What are you playing at, Quill? Bringing strangers into our village like this.
Do not blame Quill. We all but forced him to lead us here.
And who the hell are you then?
You have naught to fear from us. We are simple missionaries from Tessera who have come to spread the teachings of the Church of the Crystal.
From Tessera, you say?
Indeed.
That's a likely story.
And then he gets into fights with the villagers, and I think that should summarize all of it.
Being taken captive was not how I envisioned our mission to proceed.
There was little else we could do. We could not have fought the villagers with our full might lest we injure or kill them.
That's true. However...
Exia? What is it?
I heard a scream.
Fire? We need to get out of here!
So to me, this chapter contained quite a bit of filler. We find out after resuming from our cliffhanger that Sodley and Exia are still in a burning building, still haven't gotten out. Why the building is burning, we're not really sure, but we assume it has something to do with the villagers that have taken them hostage. But then Quill busts down the door, being the man in the village who actually has faith in Sodley, with his fancy new axe that he built for himself, and says that actually they're under attack from monsters. Now, oddly enough, there are no bombs present, so it's not really at any point clear why houses happen to be on fire, why the village is on fire, if they're just being attacked by wolves. But the village is on fire, and Sodley demonstrates that even though these people have been so horrible to him, that his faith in humanity is so strong that he will defend them even after trapping him in a burning building. And this demonstrates his faith to them, and we'll learn later why this is more the case when we have a little bit more context on where Sodley is, both in space and time at this moment. But this is a faithless world, and I don't think I could sum that up better than Quill does.
The servants of God truly are a godsend.
Servants of God? What do you mean?
Exactly what I said. Our prayers have finally been answered.
Quill, you said that you do not believe in any god. Why is that?
Probably because that kind of faith has never rewarded us.
Oh.
From famine to monster attacks, I've lost count of the number of crises we've endured. Each time we've prayed to whatever god exists, begging that our family and friends be kept safe. But not once have our prayers been answered. That is why I came to think that the very existence of a god was a lie.
But Quill...
Who can fault us? If God exists, why does that God allow monsters to run rampant? And why does that God turn a blind eye when bandits raid our village? None of us have done any evils to deserve our lot in life. All of the villagers, myself included, think this way. That is, until now.
What, pray tell, has changed then?
The two of you appeared, that's what. Your God sent you unto us. I see clearly now. God did not abandon us.
It seems your zeal has affected the villagers.
So it does.
Well, let us head back to the village.
But with Quill's declaration of faith, then he kind of brings the villagers on to Sodley's side, and they start building him a cathedral. And again, I didn't see him pick up a hammer. He seemed to be surprised when he saw the inside of it later. Oh, there's a fight between the neighboring village that doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense, but by the end of it, when they see that Sodley is a good person, they realize that they should help him build his cathedral. So now he has two villages working to build his cathedral, and two villages that are kind of starting to accept his faith. And then the big curveball comes here towards the end when, upon showing Sodley the church that the two villages have built together, Quill reveals that there is a person within this world who has been seen flying over things with wings, and that this might potentially be the god that Sodley is searching for. So obviously Sodley decides that he's going to run off and search for God. I mean, look, he didn't have the opportunity to do it at home because no one had ever seen God, but now that he might be able to see with his own two eyes his God, oh yeah, you know he's going to search for him. So immediately, before picking up a hammer and helping with the church or anything, he takes off to find God. Meanwhile, God just got his ass kicked by a bigger threat. And however, at this point, Amnelis uses her power to seal away the threat. However, she fears that despite her basically being immortal, that even she may not live to see the day which it can be beaten. And therefore, it may not be trapped for eternity. She could just be kind of kicking the can down the road, chronologically speaking. So her and Gilgamesh begin a journey. One, to find the bearer of light, which we are led to believe is Sodley, and very well could be. But also to kind of raise an army or something that can defeat this realm scourge. Okay, scene 3 is really packed with stuff, and I'm gonna make my best attempt to summarize it here. So we're back in the past, before Sodley's timeline, and potentially literally before Sodley's timeline. Amnelis reveals to the audience the following.
This is part of the countermeasure I was preparing to repress the realm scourge.
That crystal will help us defeat it?
Indirectly, perhaps. If we keep digging in this rubble, we will eventually find another device. One that has the ability to turn back time.
A time machine.
And it's at this point that I would like to introduce the idea of Chekhov's gun. This is kind of a film writing idea, or script writing. If you if you visually introduce a gun into a scene, a loaded gun, even if you don't fire it initially, the longer it remains in the scene, the more likely it is that it will be used. And not only that, but that the audience rightly expects to see it used. Therefore, Chekhov's gun, once introduced, is dangerous until it is finally unloaded, perhaps. Although, we'll talk about some of the complications of Chekhov's gun later as it pertains to having a reset button for the entire timeline. But, we'll get there. Foreshadowing, I guess. So, Gilgamesh starts to reveal his plan here, and I want to talk about another meta-narrative idea of, well, everyone here is mortal, there are no gods. Although we have people that we deem as gods because, well, why do we deem them as gods in this world? That's the question I guess you're supposed to ask. And in Gilgamesh and Amnelis's case, it's partially high magical aptitude, but it's mainly that they're from a separate world, for one, that is already way more technologically advanced than the world that they jumped to, but also they came from the future of that world into the past of this one, so they are, I mean, they're basically interacting with Bronze Age humans, or Iron Age, I don't know. I mean, I guess they have swords. The swords don't look like they're bronze. Although the daggers were bronze, so who knows. Maybe the smart... I can't do this. Maybe they're in two different ages because one village is smarter than the other, or maybe it's just weapon choice, and those are what the base weapons look like, and I'm overthinking this. But we get to see Gilgamesh's plan start to unfold here, and I'm going to be talking over most of that and trying to speed that up because we see this plan unfold by its nature multiple times as Gilgamesh and Amnelis continually reset time and relive short periods of time trying to learn how to fix their mistakes such that once we reach the point where he can join up with the Bearer of Light, he will be ready with an army and a united Ardra to defeat the Realm Scourge. And this introduces an idea that I would like to... I mean, this is a really good idea to keep in mind for, like, the whole game, but especially here, and as you're considering the motivations of the series' villains, because almost all of them have the same fundamental motivation, and that is a war to end all wars, which, ironically, is also King Mont's motivation, basically, although he has good actions in the way that early Sodley does, not the way that I don't want to spoil things about late Sodley, but he does some really war crimey stuff. Like really, really war crimey stuff. Like no ethics or morals to this man whatsoever. And this is a demonstration. This whole series is a very long Job-esque, if you've read the Bible, or I believe the Old Testament, story about how a mortal man such as Sodley becomes an immortal god, and how that perspective warps his perspective on humanity itself gradually over time, just kind of as a consequence. What was that game called? Like Last Exile or something with the immortal characters? Like the consequence of the coldness and the detachedness that comes from being an immortal god, or having access, even if it's just technologically provided, even if it is just a bracelet, essentially, having access to immortality, and how that changes your mind over the centuries. That is what this story is about, and Gilgamesh at this point is way further along in that he is perfectly happy to set these two wannabe kingdoms against each other to train them for war in a world that we are seeing later. We're seeing the ramifications of that. Like, all of the villages are tribal. They all hate each other. They all are militant by, first reaction. And I'm not sure that that was entirely intentional, but it is certainly a consequence of Gilgamesh's actions from a very early time in Ardra's history. I mean, he's really encouraging the
Then what became of your pact with me? You agreed that once you unified all of Ardra, you would lend me your military might. Or have you forgotten?
I shall slaughter all who might defy me. Then, and only then, can we say the war is finally over. And if thou hinderest me, well...
You dare turn your swords toward me?
I am the king of Ardra! I shan't be dictated to by the likes of thee!
We didn't realize how much he was setting up the wars. We thought he just flashed into existence 10 years before and started handing out relics. No, he's been doing this for centuries, and that's what you're going to come to understand over the next few iterations of this story. Again, why feel free to talk over it here. But boy, that's just the beginning, because even though he has kind of the perspective of a god looking into, like, I don't know, looking down on them like they're ants climbing in and out of their anthills, bestowing on them godlike power, the first sign that we see of rebellion against him is when someone gains 2 rings and suddenly they think that they now command the magic of God, the literal magic of God, and now they are God and no one can defeat them, including Gilgamesh, and well, they get a little cocky there. And this is really the example of this phenomena happening the fastest in the story, and it happens so many more times. But, ooh, it's just a question of, like, you know, what happens when power goes to someone's heads, and what happens when that power functionally makes them a god, even though they were born mortal. How does it, even for a man of absolute faith in humanity, how does that rob them structurally of his humanity? Because, you know, spoiler alert, that's the story that we're going to be seeing unfolding with Sottily throughout the rest of this intermission. If you couldn't figure out how he got from here to where we see him in the story we're more familiar with.
Failure.
Yes, I already surmised that much.
You knew that already? Then why have we come all this way to Lycaros?
To understand them more intimately.
Okay then. Once you have ascertained all you need to know, then it's time for us to return.
In summarizing this, I'm hoping to bring you the subtext instead of just having you read the text at its slow speed. But one of the things that's going on here is that Gilgamesh's first attempt, which he knew was going to be a doomed first attempt from the beginning because he didn't yet have his bearer of light, he did that. Everything that he has done so far, pitting the inhabitants of this world against each other in a fight, just to see how strong he could make them, how much he could get them to build themselves up to defend their kings, how much military might he could encourage in them.
Failing to realize just how much distrust the rings would induce in people. The rings do not have the power to cultivate hearts that value harmony. I believe therein lies an issue we need to resolve.
My sentiments exactly. If only there were someone with the ability to win the hearts of people by neither force nor fear.
And then, even though we already, at this point, you know, me, you, the audience, Amnilis, and Gilgamesh, we all know that this is not going to end well. But Gilgamesh is thoroughly committed to seeing it through and learning everything he can. He's thoroughly committed to taking everyone, every life that he has interacted with and throwing them away before he resets time, just so he can learn as much as he can. And
this is the treatment I received? He no longer trusteth even his own son. Now it's kill or be killed for me. So give me thine other ring. I shall kill mine old man and become king of these lands.
well, I guess if you can undo them dying by turning back time, it's not that bad, but they are still having to viscerally experience death. And that torture, even for a moment, perhaps is not worth it, even if you do later turn back time. But still, the cruelty that he, and even Amnilis being just a little bit less cold, but also her ability to see into the future makes her both of them think very utilitarian.
Is that what sort of man thou hast become?
Father?
Pleading for thy life once thou art bested. To think that such a failure is mine own flesh and blood disgusts me to my core.
Father, I won't defy thee ever again! I promise!
Silence! With that, my preparations are complete.
Preparations, you say?
There is no longer any man left in Ardra who would dare make an attempt on my life. All threats to Lycaros have thus been eliminated. For my son, who was my last remaining concern, has finally met his end. I now have no lingering thoughts about my future.
They don't think about people, they think about outcomes and how to best achieve those outcomes regardless of what the individual people involved actually want for themselves or their lives. Instead, they are trying to achieve the utilitarian outcome of defeating the Realm Scourge. Eventually, they know that they're sending all of these people to their deaths, but, well, let them play it out.
Just point the way, and I can immediately dispatch my great and glorious army to wherever our opponent awaits.
Very well. I shall guide you there.
This is a fool's errand, Gilgamesh.
I am well aware of that. But what if we were to pit this self-declared king's army against the Realm Scourge? It might serve us well to examine the results.
I guess you are right. While they stand no chance of defeating the Realm Scourge, it will at least be interesting to see what they can achieve.
Lo. Who'd have imagined such an expanse of caves existed under Leonis? Thou sayest our foe hideth somewhere down here?
It is just ahead.
What in damnation?
Does the mere sight of it strike you with dread?
Thou sayest this monster is even more powerful than thee?
It is indeed.
So if I defeat this, I shall be equal to the gods!
If that is what you want, I will gladly recognize you as such.
By the by, why does it not move? Has it not noticed our presence yet?
It has, but Amnelis's magic keeps it at bay for now. But once it smells the scent of blood, it will grow ferocious and break through its binding by brute force.
At least that'll maketh things interesting. It wouldn't be much to brag about for us to slay a beast who offereth us not resistance. All forces, on my command, charge! Show that unholy demon what the men of Ardra are made of!
They are no match for the frenzied Realm Scourge, which is pretty much what we expected.
'Tis useless. We'll never be able to beat this thing!
Retreat! Everyone,
Run for your lives!
And this directly shows us the fallacy of the idea of a war to end all wars, because even a war that purportedly is so large to end all wars has to include the assertion of dominance over every other culture and the unification of them, which is even harder after doing that. And it's just a lot easier than it sounds, and it's usually kind of an example of the road to hell being paved with good intentions, and that is why even a person who commits himself to heroic acts like King Mont would also strive for this as an ideal. But it is very much the ideal that unifies all of our villains, including, Jaden, when he's introduced to the story, is very much committed to a war to end all wars, and he doesn't care how many people he has to shoot dead to achieve this. He just wants peace, just like everyone else does, just like Sadly does, and just like Gilgamesh does in wanting to destroy the Realm Scourge. But this really illustrates how far people are willing to go in pursuit of the war to end all wars. Even consuming things like shelter and a technology that could be used in so many more beautiful ways than to figure out how to get people to kill people better in the future.
This room was originally built as a shelter. I thought it would be a good place to keep the device out of sight from prying eyes.
A wise idea.
Answering your earlier query, the reason why we were able to maintain our memories from the future after returning to the past is this. The person who holds this crystal, and anyone who is touching that person when the device is triggered, will return to this point in time with their memories intact.
So, anyone else will have no recollection of that future timeline then?
Precisely.
How much magical energy does your crystal have?
Enough. But
I know. I do not intend to misuse the energy we have. What we were missing in our first attempt was the mutual respect and the desire to cooperate among our candidates. The ability to win people's hearts and minds and bring them together as one. We need to find a means to that end, or someone who can make that happen for us.
yes, maybe that person will turn out to be the very bearer of light we are destined to meet.
Then let us hold off entrusting rings to people, and instead, focus our efforts on locating that individual. It might take years, if not decades, for them to appear where we can locate them. We need to build a base of operations somewhere secluded from the general populace of Ardra.
Yes, I suppose we will be here for some time after all.